Hey everybody, welcome. So excited to have you guys on here, whether you're coming through YouTube, through Facebook. I don't know if we're coming through LinkedIn or not, or if you're even watching this, after the fact. Welcome. So excited to be able to have this masterclass with you. Definitely doing this a little bit different than I've done in past classes. So even those of you, I know there's several of you guys that are jumping on. In fact, if you're jumping on live right now, go ahead and put in where you're from. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Hugh, good to see you from South Carolina. And when I say good to see you, I mean I'm good to see your message. I can't see you. I'm not a stalker. I don't have any tech that can make me look into your home and see you in your pajamas or anything like that. Assuming you're in your pajamas still at this point. Christopher Waters, good to see you from Nebraska, or good to hear from you as well. Definitely always great to have some of our clients on here, whether they're infinite banking clients or even some of our consulting clients. It's always great. And as I promised, this is going to be a bit different. So even if our clients have come on, they've heard me talk time and time again, I'm going to try to give something a little bit different this time around, just to make it better for you. So let's just dive right in, right? Because I know it's March Madness right now, and we're talking about this. We're not talking about collegiate basketball per se, but really talking about your life, right? Are you are you playing full on? Are you playing for the win, or are you playing not to lose? Are you on the court, or are you on the sidelines right now? Doug, welcome from SoCal. Good to have you on too. Where are you at right now? Right. So that's the big thing, is that right now there's over $1 trillion sitting in money market accounts, the biggest amount it's ever been in history, just sitting on the sidelines. Right. And that's something that a lot of people in the stock market are getting excited about, because they're hoping that people will jump in. But at the same time, although there are a lot of people jumping in the stock market, driving all-time highs, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to have a lot more money. And what happens when you drive a lot of that money in and then the market corrects itself, right? Ken, welcome from Florida. Good to have you on. So I'm going to kind of dive right into this and just really kind of hit into where we're going with this, right? Because we really are trying to get our money off the sidelines onto the court. So my big question for you is, if I could show you how you can create another $1,000 a month or more of passive income without having to spend a lot of time. You don't have to start some business that's part-time or even full-time claiming it's passive income, but it's really just a job or a business that you have to start. And it doesn't require a crap load of financial training where you have to become a financial expert. If you want to do that, just like hundreds of our clients have already done, then keep watching. If not, then obviously maybe you thought this was about basketball and this is not the thing for you. So again, Debbie, welcome from California. Glad to have you on as well. And Woojin, June, also California. Paul from Texas. Good to see you guys here. All right, so today here's what I'm going to cover is, how do you find money to invest first, right? Where's the cash come from? Second, what are my favorite investments, even right now, that especially your financial advisor doesn't want you to know about, or they don't even know about? And then third is, what does it really take to become financially independent within the next 10 years? And this is something that actually we've been proven to do, not just in my own life, but also in the lives of others as well. Just so you know, one thing I'm going to challenge you guys to do, if you haven't done this already, is go to our website, moneyripples.com. If you want to figure out in your specific situation how you can free up, or not free up, well, you can free up money too. There's another thing for that as well. That's the Cashflow Secrets course. But if you want to find out how much passive income you could create in your situation right now, you can go to moneyripples.com. There's a passive income calculator. You can put in the numbers. Just so you know, you have to put in the numbers all the way fully. If you don't complete the calculator, it doesn't work. And yes, we see it. Danielle just put the link to the calculator in the notes right there on the side in the comments. So definitely go check that out. You don't have to do it right now, but I will challenge you to do it again. But that's something that actually is pretty darn accurate. It's something that I've actually developed from my own brain, helping people be able to pretty accurately predict what kind of passive income they could create. And I would even say it's a little bit conservative. I try to stay on the conservative end too. By the way, if it's a negative number, don't worry. It just means you need more savings. You need to build up more of an emergency fund. If it's positive, especially if it's over 15,000, oh, then we need to be talking, right? All right, so let's get back into this, right? The thing is when we're talking about what we're talking about today with Main Street investing, also known as alternative investments, right? Things outside of the Wall Street stock market, where it's like this bipolar ex-girlfriend you can't count on. It's all over the place. And so most of the people out there, like the Dave Ramsey's of the world, the Susie Ormans, heck, even the Ramits and people like that, they're constantly telling you should be putting your money into the S&P 500, gambling your money away into those markets when it creates no real passive income, no real cash flow for you. Not to mention they're telling you to pay off debt. And so the problem is that although guys like Dave Ramsey have done this himself, he actually has hundreds of millions in real estate right now, admittedly himself, where he makes all of his money plus his business that also makes a lot of money. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and very little of it is in the stock market. But he tells all of you, oh, don't do what I did. Do what the stock, just put your money and gamble at the stock market because you'll make percentage returns that don't exist. They don't get it, guys. And that's the dangerous thing. And I'll tell you that the inspiration for me today is really my dad. I was raised by great parents. They taught me good values. My dad taught me to work hard. Your word is your bond. My mom taught me to follow your dreams and your passions and your heart and things like that. And so I kind of got that good left brain, right brain from each parent. And maybe you have parents like that too. In fact, feel free to type in the chat if you had parents that taught you good things as well. But my parents also taught me another thing when it came to money. There was never enough of it. And maybe you were like this too when you grew up. Hey, we can't afford this. What do you think? Money grows on trees? I'm not made of money, And the worst thing I heard from my dad was, you know what? My job is so stressful. The stress will literally kill me. And so he actually believed he would die. That impacted me as a kid, maybe for good or bad, depending on how you see it, right? But it impacted me to where I knew I wanted to have control of my own time and my own destiny, which is why eventually, as I was in college, I thought, you know what? I should probably actually get my own business, because it seems like those that have their own businesses, even if they're self-employed, tend to be better off than those that are 9-to-5 employees or slaves in many cases. So the first business I found that was intriguing to me was becoming a financial advisor, not realizing that you didn't have to be a financial expert. You just had to pass a test and not be a criminal. And so I did that. And I enjoyed being my own boss. I did that for 4 years. And after 4 years, my dad reached out to me and said, Chris, at what point are you going to become my financial advisor? I never expected this, by the way, because my dad, he's like, not only is he kind of a cheap son of a gun, right? Like, he's a very frugal man, but he also was very guarded with his money. He didn't want to share it. Ollie, welcome from Chicago. Good to see you. And so for him, it was really tough. He was like just the ultra penny pinching saver. He was like the guy that Dave Ramsey would look up to. And so when I sat down with him and we went to look at his finances, I said, all right, Dad, you are 61 years old. If you want to retire today, here's the truth. You better hope you die in 5 years, because that's when you're going to run out of money, especially when you don't have Social Security quite yet. He said, Chris, that's not what I wanted to hear from you. I wanted to hear something more, maybe a better strategy, or at least some hope that I could retire by 65. I said, honestly, Dad, I don't know what to do for you, because you did everything right. Right? You did everything right that I teach as a financial advisor. You paid off all your debt, including your house. You're debt free. You've got money you've stuffed for decades in your 401k, and still it's not enough. And that bothered me, because not only did it disturb me because I couldn't help my dad. I didn't want to gamble his money into some crazy stock strategy that might cause him to lose more money, which, by the way, the Great Recession was only a few years after I talked to him. So it's a good thing I didn't. But I just didn't have an answer for him. And of course, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. I had a friend that I reached out to. He used to be a financial advisor that I had hired on my team, and then quit to go do real estate investing. And unlike my father, who I said you have 5 years to live, he says, Chris, my dad and I have partnered on some deals, and we've now doubled his income as a professor at the local university just from the real estate investing we've done in the last 4 or 5 months. I said, come on, that's too good to be true. There's no way he doubled his income, because I knew how much his dad made. Because his dad, I sat down with him to be a financial advisor, and he decided not to invest with me and instead go do real estate investing, which I thought was crazy, because that's what all financial advisors will say. They don't want you putting your money there because you don't get paid if you go and invest in real estate. And so, of course, when he told me that, I didn't believe him. And he finally just stopped me. He said, Chris, how many of your clients are truly financially free where they don't worry about money? Well, I said, well, even the retired ones still worry about running out of money. Even if they're not in the stock market, they still worry about running out. So I would guess none would be financially free. Okay, how about this, Chris? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these mutual fund investments? And as I was really honest with myself, and notice there's over 100 people in our office, and some of them have been working there since the late 1970s, and still they're working their tails off. I said, maybe none. And he said, there's your problem. And so I started going down this rabbit hole about real estate investing and passive income, cash flow, and things like that. Not being the one that necessarily always doing the flipping, although I was taught that as well, but actually receiving passive income from various types of real estate beyond just rentals. And it blew my mind what was possible. And in fact, later that next year, I was able to retire myself at 28 years old, almost 29. And by the way, it wasn't hard. I only had like 2 young kids. I only needed 3,500 a month to be financially independent. It was a lot easier back then than having 8 kids now, where I need well over 10,000 a month to do the same thing, especially with inflation, right? But still, it was a pretty big accomplishment because I couldn't even do that in financial advising world. It wasn't even possible. And that's kind of my point for you guys, is that there was this big contrast between what my dad was able to experience. And by the way, he had to work into his 70s before he was finally forced into retirement later on, where I didn't have to. It created a very different lifestyle by how we invested, how we did what we did with our money. And that's what I really want to focus on today. And the problem is this, guys, there's all kinds of challenges, right? I mean, we don't know what's going to go on with the markets, let alone elections. We kind of predict that by, through November, things are going to be fine because neither politician wants things to go bad in the meantime. So we think the economy should be okay, but we never know, right? We've also got people like Dave Ramsey out there. I mean, you see this slide right here. He says, here you go. And this is all over. He posts this all the time and says it verbally. I mean, this is how idiotic this guy can be, right? Is that he'll say $100 a month invested from age 25 to 65, so 40 years, gives you 1.176 million. So he says, you do not need to retire broke. Here's the problem, guys. If you do $100 a month for 40 years at 12% return, because he thinks that the market actually gives you 12%, here's the actual number, 979,000. He was $200,000 off, and he still keeps repeating this number over and over as if it's truth. This is the problem with financial pundits. They're entertainers. They're not financial experts. They're just trying to sell you a bunch of bill of goods and crap and have no accountability on the other side. It doesn't matter if you don't make it. It doesn't make any difference in their life. You keep buying their crap anyways, right? But look, $200,000 off, you're still not a millionaire, even at saving $100 a month. But guess what? The market hasn't averaged 12%. In fact, it's averaged closer to about 8.3%. So even if you take out fees and everything else, and you're lucky enough to earn 8% a year, look what that number becomes, 346,000. Guys, that's the difference. If you go from what he said, 1.176 million, that's like living on 35,000 a year, to all of a sudden going to 346,000. If you pull off the 3% a year that is recommended in financial advising, you go from 35,000 a year expectation to 10,000 a year reality. Is it no wonder why people aren't retiring happy? In fact, just last year, Fidelity did a study. Only, now they updated it this year, just barely, 810,000 of their 45 million clients, only 810,000 have $1 million or more. Yet Transamerica did a separate study, and of those people have $1 million or more, 35% think it'll quote unquote take a miracle to be able to retire. A miracle, and they have $1 million or more. Why? Because when you live on 3% of $1 million, that's 30,000 a year. For most people, and I know there's always going to be some little troll on here at some point will say, well, Chris, come on, 30,000 a year, you guys are spoiled. I can live on that in Costa Rica or in Europe, or I can live on that in backwoods West Virginia. Congratulations. I'm glad. And maybe you're single, maybe you're married. Congratulations. But most people I talk to don't want to live on 30,000 a year. Even if they could make it work, would you want to make that work? Would you want to live on just 30,000 a year? So yes, if you live in different parts of the world, I'm talking to Americans, not to you, okay? So that's a big difference. So 346,000 is a lot different than almost 1.2 million that Dave Ramsey was claiming. But that's the problem with what's being taught out there. And by the way, it's not just numbers, because look, somebody made a comment on this very thread. They said, Dave, I followed you since I was 18 years old. I'm 50. I've lost my entire retirement in the stock market, just like he taught them to do. I've done what I've done what you said, but I've lost almost all of it. Is there anything that you recommend? So even worse, people follow the advice, it doesn't work, and then they ask for more help. Why would you do that, right? And there's other people making other comments saying like, wait, this hasn't really worked. It's the truth, guys. It hasn't. And when you got inflation that's a heck of a lot more than 2% that they're aiming for, and it's even more than what they're claiming at about 3.5% to 4% right now, we know it's at least 5% plus in reality. And we got the government that's running up trillions of dollars debt. Now, this meme is already outdated after a year. There's 4 trillion more debt now. And where are they going to rape and pillage that from? They're going to take it from your IRAs and 401ks to try to pay for these taxes and programs that they can't afford to pay anyways, including the interest, right? And the problem is, it's not just affecting it in the general level, it's affecting you. Because when you go into that kind of scarcity, that affects not just you, but it creates generational scarcity. It creates a legacy of brokenness. It creates a legacy of people scared of money, feeling shameful about money and thinking it's all their fault, when in truth, it's actually everybody else's fault that's been telling you wrong things. That is exactly why we exist. That's why I had to come out of retirement to teach what we're teaching, to get people free. Because it's true, cash flow creates real freedom. Without that, it's income. You don't care about how much you've saved up. You care about how much does it pay me so I can live forever, right? That's what you want. And not just live to pay your bills, which is great. You don't want to just pay your bills and then die. You don't want to sit on the front porch drinking lemonade and it's country time, the cheapest brand you can get. And you're sitting on the front porch because you can't afford gas to drive to see your own grandkids. You're not wanting to do that. You want to live a life now, not tomorrow, as that sign says right behind me. That's the real reason here. And so the thing I can promise you is that anybody can actually do this, but it's not for everybody. Not everybody's ready quite yet to take this journey into passive income. Because if you don't have any savings, I'm just going to be flat out honest with you. You have no savings, you're not going to create passive income from your money because there's no money there. Okay. So when people try to tell you, you could take $100 and make 100,000 or $1 million, and they're all on TikTok and Instagram. Yeah, sure, you could. But what they're not telling you is it requires a lot of hard work and energy and time to create a business to do that. And I'm all in favor of doing businesses, but don't for one second believe that's passive income. Okay. That's why I said, we're not trying to teach you how to create a part-time job. This is actually, how do you create income from your money? How do you get your money to make money, but make you more money than what you've been able to see just gambling it in the stock market with your financial advisor? So just be aware of that. And also, by the way, if you love your financial advisor, if you think that the 401k is the best thing since sliced bread and you're not willing to question that, because I'm going to talk about that later, then you know what? This isn't for you either. Everything you're going to hear is just going to go in one ear, out the other. Your life won't change. You'll become one of those statistics of the 99% of people that aren't free. Miles, Virginia, welcome. I just mentioned West Virginia. We just got your next door neighbor there. So anyways, even if you don't have money, there's still hope here. One thing I would say is that on our website, we talk about using the passive income calculator. There is cash flow secrets. If you are paycheck to paycheck, you don't have a lot of cash, or you don't have a few nickels to rub together, so to speak. The cash flow secrets course is actually what I use personally to dig out of $1 million debt hole when the recession kicked my butt. Because I tell people all the time, I retired twice, but that's because I screwed up the first time. After I created a bunch of passive income in 2006, by 2008, I was in the hole over $15,000 a month. And I was having to dig out of a pretty big debt hole. Didn't declare bankruptcy, but I had to get creative. I had to get resourceful. So those cash flow secrets are great if you're looking to find ways to improve your cash flow right now. And heck, even if you have money, it's actually probably not a bad idea to get anyways. Just so you know, if you ever get an, this is a side note, we're not talking about infinite banking, but if you get an infinite banking policy, you get our Wealth Accelerator Academy, which even goes deeper than this stuff too. Just so you know that cash flow secrets is actually linked here on the side. All right, so let's get into passive income, right? Because that's one of my favorite topics. I love what Warren Buffett says. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. We need passive streams of income. And it doesn't mean that you have people on YouTube waking you up with loud noises so that you can make money literally while you're sleeping. That's not what we're talking about here. Again, this is not some torture or business. This is legitimately, how do you get your money to make money? And by the way, this is not get rich quick. Like I said, this is not taking $100 to make $1 million. This is something that can take time depending on where you are, but it requires a different perspective, right? You got to be willing to take that red pill, to go down this different rabbit hole like I did as a financial advisor, realizing that it wasn't working as a financial advisor, which is why I quit being a financial advisor. That's why I get the moniker, the anti-financial advisor, because I'm not a financial advisor, haven't been since 2006. And honestly, I never want to be again, because that stuff hasn't worked. I don't like to see 1% of people successful while the other 99% essentially bought hopium, only to find it doesn't work. And so that's where we have to go. And one of the things you have to be challenged by is stock market versus real estate. Because I know when I was a financial advisor, I would tell everybody, listen, stock market has beat the real estate since 2000 BC. We'll bring out Ibbotson charts like this, right? We get a new one every single year. We go and show it to the client saying, if you put $1 into the stock market, you'll have tens of thousands of dollars, where you might have $1,000 in real estate. So don't do real estate, invest with me. Why? Because I make a commission when you put money with me. That's why. And I believed it. I actually thought that real estate sucked and that stock market was better. And there's even charts like this. They'll say, hey, even the home price index is not even nearly as much as the stocks. Homes just go up with inflation, where stocks beat inflation. Well, here's the reality. Here's the truth. I'm going to move me around so you can actually see me here. See the number. There we go. Oh, actually, well, you will in the next slide. So I took an example from May of 2018. So just almost 6 years ago now. That's when I bought one of my rentals, and I bought it out in Memphis, Tennessee. And at the time, the rental paid me a little over $300 a month. It was pretty awesome. In that same period of time, I want to see what the stock market did. Because what if I invest in a stock market rather than putting that down payment, that $32,000 down payment on my property? What if I had just put my money in the stock market? Well, the stock market actually averaged 12%. It actually almost doubled by this point here, about 93% return. Well, what does that look like from a real income standpoint? Not cash flow, but income. Because remember, even if you put your money in the market, you're only supposed to pull out no more than 3%. The 4% rule, guys, that was debunked so many years ago. Yet so many people teach it. It's like Dave Ramsey teaching you that the market still gets 12%, which, yeah, in 6 years it did, but because they printed money like Willy Wonka chocolate bars lately, and that's why we got so much money pumped into the markets, right? But that's not normal, guys. 12% is not normal for the stock market. So what would the difference been in income, actual income, if I were to pull it out? Well, 32,000 in the stock market would have grown to almost $62,000. That's a 93% rate of return. Where with my rental, with equity, where my renters are paying down my mortgage for me, the cash flow, the net cash flow, even after I pay the property manager, I do not manage this property myself. It is literally something I'm hands off on. I pay the property manager and still I net cash flow from that. And including appreciation, it's been $156,000, which is almost a 400% rate of return. I've about quadrupled the return. But even though I haven't cashed the equity out, right? Still, even from a cash flow standpoint, because I still hold this rental to this day, if I would have done it in the stocks, pulling off 3% of that nearly 62,000 is about 1,859 per year. That's like $150 a month. But in my property, I'm getting paid over $610 a month after all of my expenses are paid. So, and by the way, I get that money and I pretty much pay virtually nothing in taxes on that money because rental income, especially when you start to write off depreciation and everything else, you get the write-offs on it. Where if I have money in the market, I get zero tax benefits. Even if you put in an IRA, doesn't matter. You pull it out, you're going to get taxed. Someone might say, well, you put in a Roth IRA. Yeah, but I still had to pay tax on it initially to do it. Where with my property, I'm making the money tax-free coming in essentially. And then even if I sell a property, I can still roll it into another property and not pay any taxes on those gains that I made either. I can't say that with the stock market. It doesn't allow me to do that unless I have money in a Roth IRA, which then they still throw on all these dumb rules on me. But still, about quadruple the income, guys, just from that same thing in just 6 years. And my income keeps increasing year after year because the lease gets renewed and we have to increase the rent, which also increases my profit. And I make more and more each year. I started out making just really less than $4,000 a year. Now it's almost double that income about 6 years later. So that's the difference, guys. It's all about income. What can my money do? How can it work harder for me so I don't have to work so hard for it? And here's a real return of the stock market. I just updated it this morning, 8.3% over the last 30 years. That is high, guys. Because if you notice on the far left is 1994, that was a recession. It was at a low at that point. It stayed there till the end of 94, and then it took off in 95. I guarantee when I do this again in 1995, those numbers will come down. The averages will come down because the market will go up faster with the 90s than it will here in the future. So, and we're at all-time highs, by the way. So this is at all-time highs compared to a bad low in a recession, and it's only 8.3%, not 12, not even 10, 8.3. Usually it's between 7 and 8. So here's the advice. Let's get into it. Here's how we find money. Because when we work with clients, this is what we look for. We really look at these 3 areas when we're working with our consulting clients. Just so you know, we don't ever take investment. We don't give investment advice. I'm not going to give you any investment advice here either. These are just examples and education, right? So the real thing that we teach is about get lean, get liquid, and then get out. Now, what do I mean by get lean, right? I don't mean get lean like living on rice and beans like the guy on the before picture here. That's the guy that follows Dave Ramsey, gets freaking lean and cheap just to try to survive. We want you to actually have a nice financially fit life, right? We want to be like the 4 months later guy. Be a wise steward. Don't spend money on things that don't really add value in your life, but still, just be responsible. That's the big thing we ask for. But spend money on things that you enjoy. If you want to go take a vacation, take a vacation. Don't be the person that says, I cannot, get that latte or whatever until I pay off all my debt. That's ridiculous, guys. By the way, those plans don't work. They work about as much as those crazy fad diet plans do. And then people regain the weight, or even worse, they gain more than the weight the next time. It's the same thing that happens to people with money. They get so tight and they don't enjoy any of it. They don't celebrate their wins along the way. They end up not really gaining anything. In fact, they end up just staying in the same rat race their entire lives. And what they feel, they always feel shame and guilt, just like every financial expert makes you feel like. And you don't deserve to feel guilty or shame, because the truth is you're doing just the best you can right now. And someone should actually reward you and give you a pat on the back for it. So if it isn't going to be anybody else, I'll do it for you, because wherever you are today is perfect. I don't care if you've made mistakes, because we all have. I've made plenty of mistakes as well. But when you learn from those mistakes, then you gain wisdom. And with that wisdom, that's what allows you to prosper more. You need mistakes to learn from. I just want to help you minimize them as much as we can, right? And so make sure you are a wise steward. Track your money each and every week, each and every month. Make sure you know how much money is coming in and how much is going out. Just doing that alone will make a big difference. So be sure you're starting to really watch your money and not just watch the bank account balance. Watch where you're spending your money, but also look for ways to increase your income too. Now, get liquid. Now, Warren Buffett, who's heralded as one of the greatest investors in our era right now, Warren Buffett actually keeps increasing his cash that he's holding on the sidelines. I talked about getting it out onto the court. Buffett is actually still getting money out on the court, but he's also building up more reserves because he knows there's bigger opportunities for him down the road. Now, he invests in corporate America. He knows that corporate America has been getting overinflated, so he doesn't see any good opportunities. Now, he said by his own admission, he wishes he could buy single family homes or other types of real estate. He wishes he could do that, but he has too much money. It doesn't really work as well for him as it does for us in this. Yeah, I wouldn't say we're in a lower class category, but it's true. He's ultra wealthy, mega wealthy. We're not, okay? But the fact is he's still holding cash, and it's increased. Last year was 125 billion. Now he's got 167.6 billion as of just reported a few weeks ago. There, you got to have liquid. Where are places that you might have liquid cash? And this is, again, when we look at our clients' situation when they consult with us, we're looking for these very specific places. Where can we get money out, right? How can we get it liquid and then get it out to deploy? So for example, bank savings, great example. You're earning 0.nothing%. Maybe you have a high yield savings account. You're feeling pretty proud that you're getting maybe 4 or 5% on it. However, you're still paying taxes on that 4 or 5%. So you really don't net a whole lot. So bank savings is a great place. Life insurance, cash value. If you have life insurance, cash value can be another place you can actually use to invest. Mutual funds. If you have just naked, normal mutual funds, as they call them naked funds because they're taxed every year or taxed when you sell, great. Awesome place you could use as a way to invest to create cash flow. Old 401ks or IRAs. I say old 401ks. If you work at a job right now and you put money in a 401k, it is trapped in prison. You cannot get it out. The only way you can get out is by borrowing it, but they make you pay it back with every single paycheck, no matter what. You can't just say, can you not charge me this month? They will do it. So I do not recommend getting 401k loans, and they just don't want you to do it. Now, if you're over the age of 59 and a half or 60, you probably could still access the 401k and then pay taxes on it. But if you're under the age of 60, you don't want to get, even if you could try to get it, you can't. Okay. So old 401ks, the ones that maybe had with the previous employer could be great. We've had a few people come to us lately changing jobs. We're like, this could be your time to get this money out. Even if you keep it in a self-directed IRA and then invest that in real estate, you can make much better returns with real assets backing it up than just gambling it in the stock market. And so there are opportunities if you're changing jobs or if you get fired, heaven forbid, that does happen too. Rental properties. A lot of times I see people with rental properties that actually have a lot of equity, but not a lot of cash flow. I'll talk about that with an example later. Home equity. Maybe you got equity in your home. Could we be using that equity from your home to invest? Even with the higher interest rates right now, there might still be a reason to do it. And then, of course, if I have gold, silver, or crypto, I see a lot of people they're like, oh, my Bitcoin's taken off. Well, there's crypto people right now saying, I don't want to be in Bitcoin right now. It's gone up too high, too fast. I'm selling my positions, right? I'm not saying to buy or sell or invest anything, but if you're looking for cash that maybe is just growing and maybe you've made a lot of money lately, what if you had some of that money to then create cash flow? Take advantage of these upswings in the market. The time that people usually sell is after the markets crash, and then they get so sick and tired of it, then they sell at the bottom. Why not, if you're going to try to sell, aim for the top? Wherever that top is, I don't know. But that's the thing, is that's cash you could be using right now to generate cash flow. I had a guy that had $90,000 sitting in physical gold. And I said, listen, I'm all about physical gold. I have some too, and silver as well. However, you need cash flow. you could even pay off a credit card with some of this gold and generate real passive income where you won't get that with your gold. Again, it's about how do you improve your income. Now, here's passive investments. Here's the ones that I talk about doing in this alternative space or Main Street investing versus Wall Street. So turnkey rentals, I mentioned that, right? Turnkey rentals are where you go to a turnkey company, they find the properties for you, you get to pick the property, you even know how much you're roughly going to make even before you buy it. Then they help you buy it, even if they line you up with a lender. They help you get all that in place. They even property manage it for you or set you up with a property manager so that you're hands off. You could buy a property anywhere in the United States and be where you are. In fact, I tell people all the time, I live in the western half of the United States. I wouldn't dare touch a property out here, anywhere in the western half. But out east, even the central to the Midwest, the southeastern states, there's awesome deals out there, way better cash flow with better prices. I invest that direction. Turnkey rentals, by the way, I think are probably one of the safer ways to go. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed. None of these things are guaranteed, but definitely a safer way to go, even if the cash flow isn't as good as it was a few years ago when the interest rates were lower. Still very strong. I actually sold off properties that I bought in 2021, and with the appreciation and everything, I was telling people I made about 40%, but I just figured out the numbers last night when I was retelling it again. I realized that I put $37,000 down on a property, and even though this was my worst deal, I still end up netting roughly, pretty much I double my money. So I got 65,000 back, and that doesn't include the 7,000 net that I made off the property. So when I realized that, I was like, wait a minute, I actually about doubled my income there, or pretty close, in just 3 years. So it could be a great way to really build wealth, not just cash flow, but also grow money as well. Lending or notes. This is something I didn't know as a financial advisor you could do, is that you could be the bank. You could be the one lending your money to real estate investors. They're doing all the work. You get paid a contractual interest rate. Is it guaranteed? No. If something goes wrong, it could be an issue. But if you're lending your money and you're the one on title, just like a bank is when they give you a mortgage, right? They're on title. If you stop paying them, you take the property over. Same thing can happen for you. You have the property as collateral to protect you, but you can still lend your money to investors, let them make it, and you can make 10, 11, 12 or more percent a year off that money. You could do funds. Now, when I talk about funds, these are not mutual funds. These might be diversified funds in various things. They might be lending their money too, but maybe they're lending to like hundreds of investors. And then you get paid because you're now diversified in different places. It could be they're lending on projects. So maybe they're doing various projects, buying up assets, but could be buying apartments or whatever it might be, but then they pay you again as a debtor to them, right? So they're paying you that contractual return. Apartments, same thing. You do what's called a syndication. Syndications is where you just pool your money together with other investors to buy an asset. Because most people really can't buy an apartment all by themselves. But you can pool your money with other investors, have an ownership in that property, and be able to buy it. Same with self-storage. You can do the same thing there too. Now, I'll tell you, lately, apartments haven't been looking so good the last few years. And so our clients aren't doing as many of those lately. But I see a time that's going to come roaring back again. It's going to be another great opportunity. Same thing with self-storage. You're starting to see a few more of those deals come out too. The self-storage is a great investment where, instead of having to worry about tenants, and by the way, with these syndications, you don't deal with the tenants. Somebody else does all the management for you. You're just getting paid as an owner. Same thing in self-storage. The self-storage, the great thing is it can be let me say that again. It can be recession resistant. There's a little too many R's for me there. It can be recession resistant because when people do downsize, often they put their stuff into self-storage. And the great thing is they don't live there. So if they stop paying, you can electronically lock them out. By the way, you don't do this. Again, the operator does all that for you. You're just an owner in it. You're the one financing it to help buy that property. So a lot of great opportunities there. Oil or mineral rights. Beyond the fact that there could be some tax advantages there, a little bit of tax advantage. The great thing is that you can actually get paid by oil companies for essentially renting your land to them, for them to drill on. So you're not doing the drilling, but you are essentially renting the land to them and getting paid royalties off of that money, off of what's happening in that place. And the great thing is, if you go with the right operators, and there's a lot of charlatans out there within the oil and gas space. But if you're with the right ones, the thing is that they already know the oil's there. They've already drilled it. It's already pumping. It's already producing. They just have to put more wells in to get more out, right? So you want to make sure you take less risk on that, because there's a lot of liars out there in that space. And then there's partnerships. You can literally partner with people where, again, they could be doing the investments, but you're partnering on a deal with them and there could be some bigger returns. I have one with land investing right now that I've invested almost $400,000, but it's kicking off almost $10,000 a month currently. In fact, speaking of which, there's an example. You know how people always post their checks. I hate that. I think it's lame. But many people will say, well, do you actually get paid from that? Yes, I do. Right there, you'll see it's about 9,600, almost 9,700 a month right now. But like I said, that was less than 400,000, but I've got about 700,000 to 800,000 worth of land that, again, we're just leasing to other people, right? We're essentially selling it to them at a higher price, and we get paid a mortgage payment from it. But the question is, of course, people always ask, where can I invest, right? Where are the places I can actually have my money? Well, here you go. By the way, just check in really quick because I actually added a lot more education in it this time around. So if you're with me, just say, yeah, I'm with you. This is great. This is my favorite part, whatever. Just, put in like, if you're a lazy type of Y, to say you're with me. Yes. Y for yes. Go ahead and do that right now. Just so I know you guys are still here. I can see you're still here, but obviously I want to make sure you guys are still following along. And by the way, I will allow time for some questions at the end for a few questions as well. So if you have questions, go ahead. Ollie and Doug, appreciate the shout out there. Thanks so much. All right, so where can we invest? I actually broke this down by where you are financially, because the truth is, if somebody tries to give you a one size fits all, it doesn't work, right? You do not want somebody to give you a one size fits all plan. If they're trying to do that to you, saying everybody should invest here, then that person's selling you something, right? They're trying to sell you something that they're getting paid on. And when we're working with our clients, this is why we stay away from getting paid from operators stuff. By the way, we don't ever invest money. We don't raise capital. We don't have a fund that we're raising capital for you to invest in. We're not offering any investments to you that way. We're not, again, not investment advisors, and we're not even investment. I don't know why I'm blanking on the thing here, but basically we're not investors that way either. I invest in passive deals. I have a network of people I invest with and people that I trust. And those are the people that we often introduce to our clients if they want to invest too. So here's what you can do depending on where you are financially right now. If you have less than $100,000, I would say don't even worry about passive investing right now. Focus merely on building your savings through cash flow management, like I mentioned earlier, like really make sure you're tracking your money, saving and putting it away, and focus on ways to increase your income to speed up that process. Infinite banking is a great way to diversify your cash reserves because, again, we don't want to invest your 6 months cash reserves. That's the reason why some of you, if you do the calculator, you might get a negative number because maybe your cash reserves aren't to 6 months of expenses yet. So we want to make sure you have that emergency fund that's there that we do not invest with. However, once you get past that, you don't have to keep it all in the bank, right? We don't have to keep it in the bank or high yield savings accounts. We can keep it in a place that's tax-free and supercharged, like infinite banking, where you can earn a lot more than 0.nothing% and it's still tax-free. Again, I'll do a different masterclass on that. I think it's going to be probably next week that I'll do that and we'll announce that. But that's a whole nother strategy, but that's what I would focus on more. By the way, infinite banking works when you have over 100,000. I'm just saying right now, if you have less than $100,000, don't worry about the investing. You've got time. You've got the ability. Just focus on building up those reserves more and more so that you have at least, I would say, 150 grand or so to invest. That's when we should talk. Coming to the next phase. So this is like category 2, right? If you're the category 2 where you have 100 to 200,000 in savings outside of your emergency fund that you could be investing with, and I'm talking about places even like mutual funds or old 401ks, IRAs, all that counts. All the places I said that you could be liquid, that counts here. So if you have 100, 200,000, in addition to doing infinite banking, you could buy something like 3 leveraged turnkey properties, meaning you buy them with mortgages. So they're smaller down payments. You can even buy them in different markets, meaning that you're in different parts. So you wouldn't like to say all of a sudden buy all 3 in North Carolina. You might maybe buy some in North Carolina. You might buy some in Oklahoma. Kind of spread out that risk a little bit just so that if one market does get affected, even though they usually aren't, if they're good markets, still, it kind of gives you a little extra diversification there. Oh, hint, I mentioned this already, like with the properties I don't like Alabama. So you can invest there. I'm not a fan of Alabama. I found out even trying to deal with their utilities companies is a pain in the butt. It's like they're still in the 19th century or something. So anyways, that's where I talk about, like, you could buy turnkeys or even invest the difference in a small fund. So for example, if you have 150,000, maybe you buy 3 turnkey rentals for, 120,000, $40,000 down payment each. And then you still have 30,000 left over. You could go into a fund. There could be like a debt fund or something like that that might pay, 8, 10+% a year, depending on the fund that you're in. And so that's one way you can just diversify. And it's simple. It's easy. That's why usually people, if they have about this much money, we usually recommend people have at least 150,000 in cash to invest if they are ever to reach out to us to work with us as a consultant. That's why, because it's pretty darn simple. The options aren't huge. Although you could do other things, we just don't want people gambling their money in places they really shouldn't be in. So this is a good example of what you could be doing. Now, if you get between 200 and 400,000, this you may or may not be accredited investor at this point, which gives you a lot more access to deals. You could buy still those turnkey rentals, still do infinite banking. You can even invest now maybe 50,000 into different funds. So for example, if you have 300,000, buy 3 turnkeys, then the remaining 180,000 goes into different funds. So then you kind of diversify among those different fund options that are there. Just yesterday, in fact, or 2 days ago, I had a client that said, I have an extra 150,000, Chris. What do I do with it? And he was looking at maybe buying a turnkey rental again, or he's looking at maybe, doing something with funds and whatnot. I said, well, you could do the turnkey rental. That might be maybe a $50,000 down payment, maybe a little less. You could do 50,000 into a debt fund that would pay you. And we found one that's at 12% per year. So average of 1% a month. And then you can even do 50,000 into something else. You can even do it into like this other type of fund as well. And so it's like, you don't have to put it all into one place with one person. You could actually spread it out a little bit. And so that's what he's planning on doing. Is just looking at those places where he feels like he could actually be in. They're invested in different places and different types of real estate. So people worry about not being diversified in real estate. The truth is, in real estate, you can be way more diversified than you ever can be in the stock market. Because when you're in mutual funds, you're in paper assets, but they're really the same things. In fact, we saw in 2022, we saw in the last recession, not only did stocks go down, but bonds went down as well, which is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be the opposite, right? It doesn't work that way. You're not diversified when you're in mutual funds at all. And if you're in the S&P 500, you're not diversified at all because about a third of those returns come from just 7 stocks and really 6 companies, because Google has 2 different stocks that are sold there. So it's really 6 companies account for about 30% of your portfolio. You're not diversified at all when you're in S&P 500. So you got to be careful of that. So, in real estate, you can be very diversified in different types of real estate and be safer. And that leads to 500,000 to $1 million. If you're in that category, you can then increase your positions, even do some of those syndications or partnerships. I give an example here. If you have 600,000, you might put 150 to 200,000 towards down payments and turnkey rentals. 300,000 could go into land partnership. That's like the one I'm doing right now, where I'm getting paid almost 10,000 a month. That one takes a few years to grow and really build up. I was in that one for now 2 years. And then 150 to 200,000 could go into different funds or syndications. And I tell our clients, I said, listen, be careful. Make sure you don't put more than 20% into any individual syndication or single fund. And I also say too, a lot of them, if they try to invest with like certain operators that they really like, don't put, and this is just a general rule of thumb. It's not a recommendation. I was like, listen, like if you guys are putting more than a third in that, you're really exposing yourself to a lot of danger. Even if they do well, still, you don't know if cash flow can fluctuate. You just never know, right? So you got to be careful of that. 1 million plus, really, we're just focusing on diversifying. Same kind of thing. We're just diversifying on that portfolio. Again, you have full range of options that you can do there. S. Wong, I don't know your first name. I would say Mr. or Mrs., but whoever you are, how do you sign up for consulting? You can actually go, when you do that passive income calculator, if you get a good number where it's 15,000 or above, it'll even ask you, hey, do you want to set up that meeting to see if you qualify for consulting? Because we want to make sure we verify it. Just as a side note on our consulting too, we have to verify it because we want to make sure we have a 100% success rate. We don't have people that really we just bring in just because they can afford to pay us. We don't want that. We want people that actually get, really they essentially make more than what they pay us. So that's why we recommend that. So that's how you would do it. All right, so let's talk about how our other clients have been doing it. So, Henry here, Henry is an interesting case because he was like the stereotypical saver, right? This guy wanted to be debt free. He had a 6-year plan to be debt free on his own mortgage and his investment property mortgage in California. He also was saving up money in his retirement plans. He also got an infinite banking policy. It was kind of not great. I told him that. I was like, you're wasting thousands of dollars on this crappy insurance policy, that kind of thing. And so, anyways, long story short, he had all this equity sitting in his rental property that he was only cash flowing $200 a month. I said, listen, you got 700,000 of equity here. If we sold this property, you took that 700,000 and went and did a tax-free exchange into other properties, you could actually be cash flowing. If you only made a 10% return on your money, you would still be making 70,000 a year versus 2,400 a year. He's like, oh, I don't know. It was our first property. I love it, but I'm just not sure. I was like, listen, you don't have to, you don't have to listen to me. I mean, although that's what you hired me for, if you want to, at least be open to new possibilities, even though we're not giving you investment advice. But I just said, here's the deal. It's just simple math. It's not hard. 2 years later, he finally did it, sold off the property, took the equity out. He emailed me several months ago, said, Chris, guess what? I just bought my sixth property down in Louisiana. My cash flow is now over $8,300 a month. So 10,000, or sorry, not 10,000, 100,000 a year is what he's earning, and better tax benefits than probably what he's getting with California anyways. So it's awesome. Really cool to be able to see how that turned out for him, because again, that 200 a month, even if he paid off his mortgage in 6 years, which is not even the sixth year yet, he would only have had about 2,400 a month of income coming in from that property. So the fact he went from what could have been 2,400 to 8,300 was way better. Louis Visco, he was actually on my podcast a few years back. He talked about how Hollywood keeps shutting down, and things of that nature, even though he's had those setbacks, including the writer's strike last year, which also shut down Hollywood for nearly half the year. Still, he's about 87% of be able to pay all of his basic bills, be able to be financially independent, but he wants to be more free. So he has a little bit more ways to go. Did some turnkey rentals, did some funds and things like that. And that's where it got him. Now he's almost to 4,000 a month there. This woman, she had 650,000 to invest. She diversified among an oil investment, a mineral rights investment, debt funds. She had a real estate fund she got into, got a 76,000 a year. She's now financially independent. She now is work optional. So she's only working because she wants to at this point. This guy is a rancher here. He had a lot of equity in his properties, was finally able to get it out. And as a result, that's where he was able to, invest in various things with oil. He did some hard money lending to some investors short term, like a 6 to 8 month time frame. So he made money there, did a development deal, has some turnkeys. I even recommended that he might want to look at turnkeys to diversify his portfolio some more, and other outside investments he did outside of our network, because obviously, again, people can do whatever they want. It's their choice. But in total, he's over 200,000 a year. What's crazy is he just wanted to get to 120,000 a year. He just wanted 10,000 a month. So very excited about that. And that's net, by the way. That's net after paying his mortgage payments. Dan, we had him on the podcast as well. He had $1 million in retirement account, and the financial advisor says, hey, 3%, you can live on 30,000 a year. Dan said, I live in California. Nobody lives on 30,000 a year. So he ended up investing in various things, everything from he did some duplexes, for turnkey there in the duplex side. He did some things with apartments, with oil and gas. And now his income varies between 100 to 130,000 a year. Not 30,000, but 100 to 130,000. This one I love, because this is kind of the quintessential client that we often get is when we work with clients, we don't just look for ways to create passive income. We look for ways to improve your cash flow too. And so they came to us, they had $5 million sitting in stocks, right? And like individual stocks, Google, Meta, things like that, Tesla. Well, as we started to work with them, we realized, wait a minute, we could consolidate some of your loans, free up $3,800 a month. So really about, a little over 45,000 a year. On top of that, we found out that they're actually overpaying on taxes with their businesses. Business owners do great in our program for that reason alone. So in total, even before they invested a dime, they still freed up over 75,000 a year. Then, of course, we saw a rental that wasn't performing well. They were netting zero. We said, let's look at selling that property and then creating 2,000 a month from that. So they got another 2,000 a month from that rental. And then they, of course, started looking at liquidating some stocks. They haven't liquidated all their stocks. They've kept some of them, but still, if they did that, it would be over 600, actually closer to 700,000 a year. They're still at a couple 100,000 a year because they still have the majority of their stocks still. But I mean, that's the thing I love, is that it's not just about passive income, it's cash flow too. Now, here's the kind of a bonus for you here. I'm going to talk about 401ks, because this has come up a lot, and it doesn't get easier when the stock market goes up, right? Most people only question the 401ks when it goes down. They realize their match goes down with the 401k, right? But many people say, well, couldn't I just save in my 401k because I get that match? It's like 100% rate of return. The truth is, it's not. It's not a true 100% rate of return. I've had episodes on this on our podcast that I invite you to follow. But let me just talk about this, because Here, if it's hard for you to see, it's harder for me to see because it's smaller on my screen, maybe. But you can see here that if you invested, and I'm looking at somebody like we get a lot of clients that max fund their 401ks, but then also get a match on top of it. So I'm showing this with the match where it's a total of 30,000 a year. The max you can contribute to 401k is 23,000. So I'm pretending here that you're getting a $7,000 match from your company as well. Now, that being said, I put it at 5.5% on this one. I actually did another one at 6%, but I did this one at 5.5%. Why? Because I went and looked at Fidelity's actual performance. Because Fidelity is the most popular 401k fund. Like I said, there's 45 million clients. Well, many people pick the target date retirement fund. Did you know that the target date retirement funds, when you factor in the 0.75% fee that comes out, plus there's other fees they don't talk about as easily, but when you factor in that 0.75% fee plus how it underperforms the market, it actually does about 3% worse than the market. So if the stock market, even the last 30 years, has averaged 8.3%, which I said is high, I put this at 5.5 just to be conservative. Actually, not even conservative. I'm being liberal on this just to prove my point. So I'm giving the market a better benefit of the doubt versus even contrasting this when we look at real estate. So 5.5%, when again, the match is in there, it does make the percentage a little higher, but it's only a few percent higher. Usually the match only makes up for the bad performance of the funds. It doesn't actually do much for you in the way of getting you any further ahead than if you didn't have a 401k. But I wanted to show that because look, you have about $4 million, but of course with inflation, it's a lot worse because 40 years, 4 million is not going to be worth much. But think about that. I mean, the inflation there, if I put it at 5%, I think that's conservative for inflation. Still, that's like $600,000. That means, guys, you're living on an $18,000 a year lifestyle after you packed in $23,000 a year. Is that what you want? I would hope not. So anyways, that's one problem right there, is that even after you do save up, you get the 4.3 million, what's that really going to be worth in 40 years? It's not as much as what people think it's going to be. Even if, now I show the example here is like, well, what if instead you took that 23,000 and invested it outside of it in alternative investments at 10%, and maybe you reinvest the cash flow, kind of like I'm doing with that raw land partnership, right? Reinvest the cash flow. Look at the difference. Remember before it's 4.3 million, here almost $11.2 million. Just earning 10%, not even getting a match, just taking that cash you would have been using for the 401k anyways and investing it on your own, 11 million. But here's what's different though, guys. Remember that 11 million, that 10%, that's actually paying you 10% a year, right? So if it's paying you 10% a year, you're not even touching the principal. That means you can actually live on, in that case, actually roughly about $1 million a year, 1.1 million a year, which of course after inflation isn't that much. It might be closer to, what does it say, like 159,000 a year. But let's contrast this. Let's look at, because I know everyone will say, yeah, but Chris, what if I don't max fund it? What if I just get up to the match? What if I just contribute up to my match? I get the 100% match and that's good. Great point. Let's talk about that. What if you got you put in, say, 6,000 a year, got a $6,000 a year match or something like that, right? Let's say you did that. Well, I went and ran the numbers again. After those 40 years, you get 1.97 million. I ran this at 6%. So I ran this even higher than the 5.5. I ran it at 6. 1.97 million. Well, that means you pull off 59,000 a year before tax, right? That's before taxes. So you 59,000 a year, then you get tax on it. That same money, again, if I put into real estate, getting just that 10%, that grows to now 2.92 million. The same money I could have used without the match now goes to 2.92 million. That's 292,000 a year. And I get tax advantages with it too, where I pay little to no tax on that 292,000. So even then, even if you do the whole 100% match, I only do up to the match, which some of our clients still question. This is for my clients. That's a big difference right there. So here's the thing. If you're starting from scratch, right, you want 100,000 a year of passive income. You want to do that in 10 years. So you want that 10-year goal. Remember I talked about that. Now, if you already have money in savings, you're already ahead of the game. I want to take it from someone who's like at zero. If you want to do that in mutual fund and you happen to earn 7% a year, even after fees and everything, you're going to have to save almost 20,000 a month to be able to get to 100,000 a year in 10 years. Now, if you have an investment that's at 10%, like I just talked about here, even if you got 10%, which most of our investments pay at least 10% that we have connections to, it's about 5,000 a month. Much better than paying 20,000 a month or 19,000 a month. 5,000 a month's a lot more doable, isn't it? If you can even just raise it by 2%, which there are some investments that do pay 12%. As I mentioned, some of my rentals have done better overall. And again, I'm never trying to make promises. You can always lose money anytime. All the disclaimers I have to put here, right? But even at 12%, now that number comes down to 37.20 a month. That's, I mean, that's still a good chunk of change, right? I'm not, poo-pooing on that. That's roughly 45,000 a year, but 45,000 a year is a lot more doable than 235,000 a year, or almost 240,000 a year, isn't it? So that's the big difference, guys. It really does make a difference. And here's really the big picture, how it all works together. Because I know some of you guys asked in the comments about infinite banking. Again, we're not talking much about that, but infinite banking does help. It's one way to diversify your emergency fund and get a better return on your money that way. And it protects your money better too. But it's also a way that you can use your money to be able to make it pay you twice. And so you can use that with passive investments. So we talk about, how do you understand these investing principles first, get educated using the infinite banking, but then also going into passive investments. Now, I'll tell you, you don't even need infinite banking to get out of the rat race, to have enough passive income. It just helps throw a little extra fuel in the fire. It helps give you a little better ROI on your money. But ultimately, like, it goes in those passive investments to then generate more cash flow, helps keep building your experience, keeps building your education, you keep cycling that money through to reinvest again and again. And you create this income snowball or avalanche, so to speak, right? Where, as you keep reinvesting that cash flow, it keeps building that cash flow more and more and more. So I mentioned before, you could do our passive income calculator. I apologize. I should have taken a recent screenshot. I know it's different now, but you'll see at the top there's passive income calculator right up there you can use. So you can go ahead and try that out right there. But let me just wrap it up by saying this, right? I was driving to the bank, last year, and I remember seeing this on my GPS. If you can see it here, the one quickest way, of course, is 1 minute, even economically friendly, as you can see there by the little green leaf there. But if I took the other path, it would take me 24,855 days and 3 hours longer to get there, which is really that long. I did the math. I can't remember how many years. It was like 60 years or something like that, something ridiculous. But that's kind of what it's like. Like, when I see people try to take the traditional way of doing this, it's almost like they're trying to take the long route there, when really you could take the short path. And that's like the contrast I mentioned, like with my dad. Like, today he's still alive. He's actually just about to turn 80. And here's the thing: is like, guys, he's alive, but he had to keep working into his 70s. He had to give up, sacrifice so much of his life to be where he is today, right? And then even then, when you have to count the dollars and you're worrying about inflation, you're worrying about medical costs and everything else, it doesn't make it good, guys. And this is what I don't want to have happen to you: is that the most dangerous risk of all, as this meme says, the risk of spending your life not doing what you want on the bet that you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. I already told you guys, there's less than a 1% success rate when it comes to the traditional financial advising, even when people are using their 401ks. Less than 1%. That's horrible, guys. That's like going to a restaurant where there's 99 negative reviews and there's that 1 5-star review. You say, yeah, I trust it. Even though it's his mom, I trust it, right? You're not going to do that, right? You need to know that something can work. Where tens of millions of us have actually done this successfully through real estate investing. We have a much higher odds of success. I've seen people accidentally become financially independent buying real estate and not even doing it well. But just because of the fact they bought the right kind of assets, it got them there. Even if it took a little bit, maybe double the time or triple the time it should have taken them, they still got there better than gambling it in the stock market. I don't want that happening to you guys. I was the financial advisor. I was the one teaching. The reason I left financial advising is because I could not be a liar and a deceiver anymore. Even though I wasn't intentionally doing it, because I was taught and trained just like everybody else was. I was taught and trained to teach you the stuff that you should stuff your money in 401ks and IRAs, and you should pay off your debt, only to find out that the evidence wasn't there. It wasn't working. It hadn't worked for my clients, hadn't worked for clients I inherited from decades of advice. Why would it continue to work today? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Guys, you need different results, and it's not doing the same thing. It's about doing something different, but it requires faith. And the thing is, there's many, many of us that have done it. And I would say percentage-wise, there's a lot fewer people you probably will see that really feel truly financially free when they're in retirement. Because I guarantee you, even if they are retired, they're counting their dollars, or they were fortunate enough to have a pension because they work for the government or some company like that. That's really the only people I see that really are comfortable. It's very, very few and far between. The choice is yours, guys. It's really up to you. Like I said, try the calculator out. If you get at least $15,000, you should be talking to us. Even if you don't, the infinite banking, I know somebody was asking that here online as well. That can help too. Go ahead. If you have questions, I'll take a few questions right here. I took longer than I expected. I hope it was worthwhile for you. because I really, really want to give you some good education. Even if you've seen this many times, I want to give you something new this time. So go ahead and type the questions in the chat there, and we'll go from this point. And as a reminder, if you look in the comments while you guys are typing in any questions you have, as you type in the comments, there's the calculator link is already in there. You can take the calculator or just go to moneyripples.com. It's not hard to find. If you want to know about infinite banking, there's also a link there too. Again, that's not our focus today. I'm all talking about passive income today because that's where what worked for me. So what questions do you have for me that could help you take your situation to the next level? And if you want me to keep it anonymous, I will. Even if you don't have a question, just I know there's a lag here when I say this versus when you hear it, and when it comes in on my side. Was this good for you? Like, did you guys learn something? If so, what was one thing you learned from this? I see a question coming in right now. But yeah, go ahead and type in like, what's one thing that maybe you learned, maybe a perspective shift that you had that you thought that was worth the time, at least for being here. While you're doing that, Doug said, "What are my thoughts on investments overseas?" Overseas investments, I'll tell you, every time I talk to people overseas, guess what they talk about? Where they talk about investing in the United States. So it's not that you can't invest overseas. I've had clients that are like that are Filipino that go invest in the Philippines, but hands down, I don't care if you're in Australia, I don't care if you're in Europe. Everybody keeps coming back here because the opportunities are better here. And the great thing with the United States is because people worry about real estate, and the media will talk to you about like real estate's horrible. Which every time they say that, I know it's not, because whatever the media says, it's the opposite of what they say. So when they say, "Oh, it's horrible," well, they said 2023 is going to be a horrible year in real estate. Real estate went up 5% last year nationwide. Now, here's the thing: there are tens of thousands of different real estate markets inside the United States. It's such a big country, and there's so many different markets that the stuff that's newsworthy, the stuff that always makes the news, are typically the stuff that's either high extremes of high, huge inflation or crashes. But they never talk about the boring, stable, predictable cash flow that comes from many, many real estate markets right now because it's just not newsworthy. It doesn't create enough clickbait for people. So that's why you never hear about it. So again, I always hear people saying they want to do it overseas. So Paul asked, "Do you ever recommend investments where there is a greater return but little cash flow?" Yeah, sometimes. So there are investments, and this is why when we focus on our clients, we ask them, "Do you need more growth, or you want more cash flow, or both?" Right? If somebody's looking more for passive income, and we get a lot of people, especially if people have a lot of money, that's usually their focus anyways. Then we're going to go for things that give you more immediate type of income. But if someone says, honestly, I really don't care about the income, but I want growth, there are investments that you might get paid little to nothing in the first few years. That's especially true in the syndication side, where it might be oil and gas, it could be apartments or self storage, it could be that as well. But the thing is, you have to be careful of is that I personally, I like cash flow because I like to get return on my money. Because if anything goes wrong, at least I know I got return of my money in the meantime, right? Just so you know, like nobody was immune to what's happened the last 2 years. I've had real estate investors say that the last 2 years, especially 22 and 23, were the worst years that they've ever experienced, even compared to 2008 and 9. Like they said, it's hands down, it was worse the last few years because of those interest rates came up so high so fast they couldn't react in time. Where it was the opposite in the last recession. A lot of them made a lot of money in the last recession because of what happened. So for them to say that, and still maybe only about 5% of our deals ever had either a delay of payments or even just didn't pay at all, where they might have possibly could be losing some of the money. That's pretty darn good. I know a lot of groups out there, groups that are like ours that might connect people with deals that like half of their deals or more went south. It was so horrible. So we're really proud of that. We really do great due diligence for ourselves and for our own investing, not to mention our clients as well. So can you do growth, versus cash flow? Absolutely. But just don't go for only growth is my recommendation, because I think there's something to be said from a psychological perspective of getting cash flow. Some of our clients, like there's a fund that pays 1% a month. Some of our clients go for that because they get a quick, easy win, and it's a monthly payout versus quarterly, and they love it, because you put 100,000 there, you get paid $1,000 a month, they get paid, even if they have to wait longer for some of these other investments. So I just do that with caution. Like I usually tell people, get some cash flow mixed in with the growth too. All right. Next question, or next statement. He says, you got good benefit from worth to look into using HELOC for investment. It could be. I'll tell you though, HELOC may or may not be the right thing. It could just be a simple refinance of your mortgage, where mortgage rates have again come down just the last 2 weeks alone. They've come down 0.25% already, and again, the media is not even hardly picking up on that. So we get the average mortgage rate around 6.75%, not the lowest, but still it's much better. That's also good if you're looking to buy turnkey properties. That just means that your numbers, your cash flow improved in just 2 weeks if you lock the rate now. Another question: do you have any partners that we can use for investment? We do. Those are people that we do reserve for our consulting clients, just because we want to make sure it's a good matchup. We do kind of a matchmaker type thing. Again, never recommendations, but things. We have over 20 investment partners and operators that we could refer to. That I haven't invested with all 20, just so you know. There's different investments for different purposes and whatnot. But again, our clients have been investing with these people too. And I'll tell you, like, we don't just say, here's all 20, here's the buffet, have fun. Well, we try to customize it to what I just answered for Paul earlier, right? Which is growth versus cash flow. If somebody wants more cash flow, we're probably going to say, well, don't even look at the growth options as much, right? They want more growth. We might say, well, maybe some of these cash flow options aren't worth looking at. So we try to narrow down the options and make it simpler. Obviously, you can invest with anybody, but that's the big thing. There is one group that we do have as a sponsor on our podcast, which is not a recommendation, but it's a sponsor. Their minimum investment on one of their funds is $1,000. And so if you ever listen to our podcast, the audio version, I guess maybe the video version doesn't have it, but the audio version does, where we advertise Secured Investment Corp, and they pay in the upper single digits, on their funds. So, and they're non-accredited or accredited investors. You can invest in those kind of things. But again, not a recommendation, but that's one that we do publicly have sponsoring our show. Let's see. The other question, I'll probably make this. Oh, this is actually a statement. David had said here, I learned the benefits of real estate for passive investments. That's good. That's really good. Hopefully that was kind of a good perspective shift for you. Here's the thing, guys. Like I said, there are what I didn't realize, that whole matrix red pill I took, was that there were so many options in real estate. It wasn't like buying a property in my backyard. I can invest in so many different ways and have a real asset backing up my money, protecting my money, and earn income from it as well, much better than what I would ever do in the stock market. I was asked this question last night from some people in Australia. They said, do you diversify outside of real estate? I said, other than my business and maybe some, gold and silver and such. And I did do a little Bitcoin before it hit a really big high, and then I sold a bunch of it. But other than that, no, I stay out of the stock market. Even though I used to trade stocks and options, I've stayed out of it. It's to me, it's high risk, mediocre returns. And so I stay away from it. Doesn't mean that our clients won't keep some, but I just cannot compare. It just does not compare to what I can do in the real estate game. It's so much better. So anyways, guys, I appreciate your time here. Like I said, go to moneyripples.com. There's plenty of more information to get on there. You can follow our podcast as well. But definitely try that passive income calculator to see how we can best serve you today. So guys, make it a great day and let us know how we can best